Hello and welcome to the White House 1600 Sessions. I'm Stuart McLaurin, President of the White House Historical Association. Today, I'm in Laurel, Maryland at the United States Secret Service James J. Rawley Training Center. We're here to get a very special look at the Beast, the affectionate name given by the press to the presidential limousine. This facility has served as the Secret Service Training Academy since 1971, and it sits on almost 500 acres of beautiful land with 6 miles of roadway and over 30 buildings. Well, I'm in one of those buildings now, the Deal Garage, and I'm standing next to a version of the Beast, and you'll see why it earned that nickname when it first debuted in 2001. General Motors engineered and custom-built these Cadillacs, which you definitely can't buy off the lot. Gen 2 debuted in 2009 during President Barack Obama's inauguration. We won't be able to look at Gen 3, the version used by President Biden and also by President Trump during his 2 terms, as Gen 3 is still on the road and in active service. But we'll get to know more about this one, which is used to help train agents. We'll also see other historic vehicles that have been used in service of the President of the United States. Our guest today is John Bush, the special agent in charge of the Presidential Protective Division for the United States Secret Service. John actually retired at the end of 2025 after 24 years of service. We'll talk with him about his career and hear firsthand an account of what it's like to drive and protect the President of the United States. Well, the United States Secret Service was formally established in 1865 to help battle counterfeiting of money. Their mission has evolved substantially over the years, and it was actually after the assassination of President William McKinley in 1901 that Congress requested that the Secret Service protect the United States President. It was President William Howard Taft who first used and received government funds to purchase vehicles for the White House, and thus began the work of the United States Secret Service and the limousine. The first president to use a modified car with safety protections was Franklin Delano Roosevelt when the United States entered into World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. Well, the armored vehicle has come a long, long way since then, and I'm really excited to learn more about the Presidential Protective Detail and then take a look around. So let's go meet our very special guest today, John Bush. So John, thank you so much for having us here today. It's an honor to be with you and your colleagues and to hear the important story of how the President is driven and protected and the history of that, and to see the reality of these incredible vehicles, which we take for granted seeing them on television, but they're so important to the integrity of the President's protection. And you've given so much of your career to that particular role. So I want to thank you for that and for your 24 years of service. And what does it mean to you having just retired from the United States Secret Service and looking back on those years?
Well, thank you for having me. And it's a team effort. It's not just about one person and one effort, but to move the President in these vehicles takes a team of people. And that's what I miss the most, is interacting with that team and the people that sacrifice so much that it's seamless, as you said, seamless to the world that he moves, but it's really not seamless.
And how did you yourself join the Secret Service and begin this long career?
I was a police officer in the St. Louis area. I had worked a call one night to a bar for some counterfeit, and I didn't know what to do with the counterfeit. And my supervisor at the time said, call the Secret Service, that's what they do. And I did, and 30 minutes later, 2 men in suits showed up and walked me through it. And then a couple months later, George W. Bush was running for president. He was governor at the time, and I got to be involved in the motorcade security for his route in the St. Louis area.
And so over that period of time, you've worked with the service that has protected presidents of both parties, and there has to be a seamless coverage. There's no politics involved. Everything is nonpartisan, and you are working with presidents of all persuasions and stripes, just as we do in our job.
That's right. Completely apolitical, and it's more of the office than the person.
In terms of working in the various roles of the Secret Service, from the counterfeiting to the Presidential Protective Detail, how does someone get involved in the particular role that we're talking about today? How do you evolve into that from your service?
Well, once you're established into the agency and it's time for you to go to your protective assignment, you go to one of the two protective major details, which is the Vice President's detail or the Presidential detail. And during that time, they have what they call satellites, that you can be on the First Lady's detail or counter surveillance division or maybe the child's detail, or you can be in the transportation section. And so you're selected by your leadership to go out to the Raleigh Training Center, and you go through protective operations driving course. And if you pass that, then you have the ability to be part of the transportation section.
And there's the living former presidents and first ladies. That great movie, Guarding Tess, they're guarding her. So you are deployed as well for formers in some capacity.
That's correct. Former details do have Secret Service protection.
You actually served as a driver to the president, and tell us about that particular responsibility.
I did. I was selected to go to transportation section with President Obama. But as you mentioned, there are many assignments. So today, I may be driving the limousine in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but next week we're going to Little Rock, and I'm driving the spare limo, or I'm driving the follow-up. Or I may be doing the advance, where I go out ahead of time and memorize routes and safe houses and coordinate with police, local medical, those things.
I can't imagine the coordination that it takes to begin. You get a trip on the books and you have to coordinate with all the various agencies in the transportation, and it would be the military that transports, right? And you're working with White House Advance and others to coordinate the routes and the travel. How do you learn all of that? How do you become integrated into that system that teaches you and trains you how to do this role in terms of all the various people you have to work with, in addition to protecting the president?
That's right. Well, during your progression with the transportation section, you will go through each progression as a follow-up driver or a spare driver. You have to graduate to drive the limo. And to do that, you have to be a good advance agent. And so you do make inroads and contacts with the military, because they do transport our cars for us. And then you go through the progression of your timeline while you're in the transportation section. And usually you end up your senior time driving the limousine.
And your actual time as a driver, as you mentioned, came with President Obama.
That's correct.
And how much time advance notice did you have that you were going to be the actual driver for the president?
So the trip comes out, the supervisor in the unit makes assignments, and next thing you know, I'm slated to drive in San Diego for President Obama. And so you take that trip and you're the driver.
And you've done all that training.
That's correct.
And you've got it, you know what you're doing. And then that moment comes when you're behind the wheel with the President of the United States. What is that moment? What is that feeling like?
Well, when we do the advance, we don't rely on maps. We don't rely on GPS. It's all based on the advance agents. This is the route we're taking. We go out, we look at the route, we drive the route. And then you just have to go back to your training, what the men taught us here at the Raleigh Training Center and our protective operations driving course about how to maneuver the vehicle.
But you're carrying the President of the United States.
That's right.
That's a pretty important payload.
That is, when you're driving, you don't think about it being the President of the United States. You have a job to do.
Yeah.
So you're going to do the job. But when you can finish the run and the route and you see what you've done and what the team has done, it sure does mean a lot.
So you're the driver, you're in the driver's seat. Who else is with you in the car other than the passengers? And what are the other roles that are primary in that motorcade?
So next to me in the right front seat would be the special agent in charge of the President's detail or the Vice President's detail. And I just retired as the special agent in charge of the President's detail. To be in the limo with us, you have to be invited in by the President himself or his senior staff. So we'll know that ahead of time. The car behind us is carrying another team of agents, and that's called the follow-up. There's a car that's somewhere in the motorcade that is very similar to this vehicle or the one that he is in, that has other security measures in it as well. And then it goes from there. A mix of staff and functional security vehicles.
And as the driver and the person that's riding shotgun, as we would say in civilian language, do they have interaction with the president? Can he reach up and tap on the glass, or is there glass between you and the president?
There is a partition. We keep it down. He does interact with the driver. I've been lucky enough to sit in both seats. So I've had conversations with President Obama about the city we're in or where we're going next, how long it takes to get there. And as the right front seat, talking with President Trump, it's the same thing. It could be about what the next event is or how the last event went. We don't talk baseball scores. It's pretty short and to the point, just because we're focusing on what could happen.
Sure. There's the motorcade and the vehicles that you have described there, but we also see local law enforcement, and then we'll see an ambulance in the motorcade and some communications vehicles. What's the length of an average motorcade? Is it 20 or 25 or 30 cars, or does it vary?
It varies. Typically on a domestic stop, it could be 20 to 30 vehicles. On a foreign stop, I've seen it be as much as 40 to 50 vehicles.
Wow. And how do you transport these vehicles to get them from one location to another? What kind of an aircraft can accommodate these vehicles?
So typically we use a C-17 transport plane, and we have used a C-5 to carry larger packages. And then we take that to whatever country or whatever state that he's going to. And as you referenced, we only have so many assets, so many cars. So there are times when on a campaign that team is out for several stops in a row because we have to get that vehicle and leapfrog it from one state, one city to another.
Well, you don't go into a Cadillac dealership and buy one of these.
That's correct.
A lot of forethought goes into it. And I imagine that General Motors and Cadillac is very proud of that relationship.
I would imagine that they are. It's not very often you see a Cadillac emblem on a vehicle like that. The older generations were just Cadillacs that they did buy, and they cut them, they stretched them, they armored them, they put ballistic capabilities on them, and they put them on the road. The new generation that we built from the ground up, and we have a hand in that design. Gen 4 is the next one, and it's currently being in production.
And then the former vehicles like we see here today are kept for museum purposes or for use by the service in an ongoing basis or ongoing way.
That's correct. These vehicles are out of service, and they're here for tours or to teach the lineage of the next driver.
Are there unique cars like that in other protective details for other heads of state, or are we really unique in that way?
We are very unique. In my time with the Secret Service and on the President's detail, I have seen only two other countries that bring their own cars, and that would be the President of Russia and the President of China. We both saw them recently in Alaska and then again in South Korea, and they brought their own vehicles the same way we do, military transport, because we don't want somebody else driving our vehicles, or we don't want to drive their vehicle. So we know what it's capable of, and we know who's driving it.
Now, we sometimes see an SUV type of car. What's the interplay between this Cadillac limousine and the SUV type of car that we see? Is it the president's choice? Is it the service's choice? Is it determined by the type of event that you're going to?
Yeah, it could be an array of things. Typically, we'd like to keep the president in the parade, the vehicle, because of its capabilities. The other vehicle that you mentioned is we call it the Camp David limousine. It's a Suburban on the armored platform based on the terrain of the road, based on the size of the road, the narrowness, based on the weather. It may be something that is more conducive to that vehicle.
Suppose the president wanted to go on a more spontaneous outing. I know that President George and Barbara Bush used to like to go to the Chinese restaurant out on Route 7. Suppose on a Saturday night, the president said, I wanted to go to dinner. How long does it take to get the car, to get ready to go on something that is a more spontaneous, off-the-record type of event?
It does happen. And we have an agreement with staff that it takes a certain amount of time, and I won't go into all the time or why it takes that much time, but we have to make sure that the routes are secure, that the local police are prepared, that we've had a chance to look at the location, which car fits. Maybe that's the point where we take the Suburban because we can't fit down the street with this vehicle. So there's a whole array of decisions that go in, but it does happen on a frequent basis.
And is that interface between the Secret Service and the president's chief of staff? What's the line of communications there? Yeah,
typically the chief of staff will call me as the special agent in charge of the detail, or I've had the president himself tell me that just seeing him at the White House, I'd like to do this today or tomorrow. And we come up with a time frame that we can do it.
One of the days that Americans are accustomed to seeing on television is Inauguration Day. And the custom is for the outgoing and the incoming president to be together riding up to Capitol Hill after they've met traditionally at the White House. That is an incredible moment of history when you're driving an outgoing and an incoming president of the United States in the same vehicle. What is that like?
Well, I was fortunate enough this year when President Trump was inaugurated as number 47, I was in the right front seat of the limo with him and President Biden. So I heard the conversations that they had. And you're thinking about, as you said, this is a historical moment, passing the torch, freedom on a scale that is international, but it's safe, it's democracy, we're safely passing that torch. It's inspiring at one moment, but then also that you know that there are adversaries out there who would love to disrupt that.
That's exactly right.
So the team of teams that we put in place, we're ready to deal with that.
Well, just as there is a very exclusive club of men who've been president of the United States, likewise, there's a small group who've actually driven these presidents. And to have that privilege and that responsibility, and on a day like the inauguration, it's twice as much. You're the protective detail for an outgoing and an incoming president of the United States. What else about that day is significant in the sort of the changing of the guard of the apparatus? Is the head of the president's protective detail replaced right away by the new head of president's protective detail?
It really depends on who the president is and what time. I became the 39th Special Agent in charge of the detail last December 2024. And I was lucky enough to go down and do the transition for President Trump and then be involved in the transition of power with President Biden.
The Beast.
Yes.
Did you give it that name?
No, we did not give it that name. The media gave it that name.
Was it this generation that was given the name Beast, or was it one of the predecessor cars when it got that name?
No, the Beast moniker came from the media for George W. Bush's vehicle.
So for almost 20 years, it's had that Beast.
That's right.
That title. And did any preceding car have a nickname?
No, it's just the sheer size of that vehicle at the time. The media referred to it as the Beast.
It's amazing that something like that will stick and that people just refer to it as the Beast, and everybody in Washington knows exactly what they're talking about.
That's right.
That's great. Well, I know there's so many things that are classified or confidential about the vehicle itself, but just generally, what can you say about how much it weighs, and even could you say how the range of how fast it could go, or anything about descriptively about the car, so people understand how different it is from your normal Cadillac limousine?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't discuss any of the weight or the length or its capabilities. But what I can tell you that's different is the people that are maintaining it, driving it, operating it. They put everything into it. And every day when that hits the road, it's ready to perform as designed.
Wow. And you take those people with you around the world as needed?
That's correct.
Yes. And it operates on gasoline?
The new generation is actually the first one to do diesel. The others were gasoline.
Wow, that's fascinating. And the flags that are on the front of the car, you have the American flag and then you have the presidential flag. Always those two flags? Is there ever a time when those flags would change or be anything different?
Well, those flags fly on the vehicle anytime the president's in the vehicle for an official movement. He always sits behind the American flag, so it's always on the right side. So there are times when we go to foreign countries that we will put that country flag on the left side so that we're right in unison with the Canadian flag or the South Korean flag while we're in their country.
And then do these flags get retired, or is there a special way that they ceremonially come and go? Because they obviously wear out a lot sooner than the car would wear out.
That's right. There are ways that they are given as gifts. I have a set that I was given for my retirement from my last movement.
Wow.
There are flags that are maybe on the vehicle for the day of the inauguration or a special event. We will gift those to the protectee or to somebody that was on that movement.
So the license plate here, did like somebody go down to the DMV and stand in line to get this DC license plate?
No, close. As you can imagine, there's always some type of intelligence that is driving what we do and don't do for the president. And it came to a point before the Beast that people would guess what vehicle he was in based on the license plate. So we wrote a letter to the DC DMV asking for the same plate be manufactured for all the same vehicles. So since then, every plate we've had has had that number, and it was just the next number up. There's nothing special about that number. And the only thing that has changed over time is sometimes it'll say representation without taxation, which is just the DC motto. So, but other than that, the number has always stayed the same.
And I don't see the inspection decals on there either, so you don't have to go do the exhaust.
We don't have to do that. We have our own mechanics that do a phenomenal job.
Just like when I asked you what it was like that first moment that you knew you were driving the President of the United States, there was the moment you knew would be your last drive with the President of the United States. So do you have a moment of interaction with the President about that? Does he know it's your last drive?
He did know it was my last drive, and he was very gracious. We didn't say much in the car about that, but once we got back to the White House, we had a personal moment where he congratulated me and shook my hand and told me he was proud of the work that we had done.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. That's quite an honor. Well, it's a very special calling to have the skills and ability to protect the President, but the respect and confidentiality and the discretion of being in the presence of things that are being discussed and are taking place within your earshot. That's quite an honor to be in that bubble of information that's not just political, but it's globally important and globally sensitive. How do you handle, or anyone in your role, handle the burden of that responsibility?
Well, it comes down to what our motto is. We're worthy of trust and confidence. The President trusts me. The director trusts me and our people to put us in those situations. And it's my job to maintain that trust and that confidence. And if I can't, then I shouldn't be there. So there are things that I've heard in that car or in his proximity. I don't care who the president is. I've been around from President Obama to President Trump on his second term, hearing and seeing things that I will never repeat. And it could be innocuous, but I'll never repeat it.
Or it could be about their family, not just a national security matter, but it's things that could be very personal to them. And so you are a very trusted entity in their presence, which speaks so highly of you as an individual, but also the service as a whole.
That's right.
We're outside of Washington, D.C., and we're in this very special building where we're sitting here with these vehicles today. Tell me who this building is named after and what's important about him.
Well, it's named after a legend, Bob Deal. You could say he's the father of the armored vehicle that we have. He had a hand in driving back to President Nixon, driving President Reagan, had a hand in designing and having the first armored cars built. An incredible man.
I look at someone like Bob, I look at someone like you, and you as individuals are so much a part of the history of the White House, the history of the presidency, just as much as any other person that's on the president's senior staff or the cabinet, or maybe even the first family themselves. You've been an integral part or role in the presidency. And that's a tremendous honor and a responsibility. And to just want to congratulate you again on your years of service and for sharing the story of this particular role with us. Just like when you see United States of America on the side of that plane, you see the seal on the side of this car when it wheels up and you guys are there and the doors open and the president steps out. That's a moment. That's a really powerful image. So thank you for all you've done to be a part of that story, this part of the presidency and part of the White House.
Thank you.
So now I'm really honored that you're going to take me around and show me some things and learn a little bit more about this incredible process, the vehicles, and what the president uses for ground transportation. So we're ready?
Well, ready. I have a special guest for you.
Okay.
Bob Deal's here.
Oh, fantastic.
And he's going to show us a few things.
Okay, let's go. Let's go see Bob. Well, I said we were going to have the opportunity to meet the great legendary Bob Deal. Here he is, the man and the legend of the United States Secret Service. And in fact, this building is named after Bob and his extraordinary career of 50 years in the United States Secret Service. In fact, I understand that almost everyone who is trained has gone through some element of working with Bob during those 50 years. Bob, tell us about this particular vehicle, where we are today, and its significance and its meaning.
Well, it is really the first big Cadillac formal-looking parade car that we had built. It's a 1993. This car was cut, lengthened, the roof was raised, all the suspensions was changed. This thing is basically a Chevy C30 truck underneath of it,
Oh, wow.
with a Chevy truck engine in it.
So this was Bill Clinton vintage right here. This was from the Clinton presidency, this
Yes.
car.
Yeah. We built several of these at the time because we needed cars. We were running short of cars in the Secret Service. We had two 1981 parade cars. Now, when I say parade cars, this is not built on a standard limo platform. This car probably 4,000 to 5,000 pounds more than a standard limo would be. We call it a parade car because we made it very formal looking. Ballistically, it's probably back in its day was the car in the world, ballistic wise.
Wow.
Okay. It was used a lot, and we had some issues with it. People keep asking about the seals. The seals kept falling off the doors after we built the car.
Oh, no.
And we found out we put too much Bondo on there to smooth it out, so we had to redo all the doors. And
I was told that you painted the seal on every door. Is
yeah,
that-
right. You see the seal inside of
Yeah,
the door on this
yeah.
car? A woman in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, handmade those for
Really?
us and delivered them. I was there the day she delivered them for this car. She made three of them, one for this door, one for that door, and there was one on the back seat of this car.
Wow, so
too.
those are hand stitched.
They're hand stitched. So this car stayed in service, probably 10 years. We try and get the most out of these cars that we possibly can because, number one, the cost of building these cars is not cheap.
Well, I notice on the driver's door, there's actually a key turn. Did you carry that key around on your keychain for the car you drove?
I'd tell you where we put them, but I'd have to kill you.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, we always have extra keys.
That's great. You can't go into Lowe's and say, make me a copy of this key, can you?
No. No, I would hope not.
Well, this is great. And obviously it's lower and not as long and not as stout as what we would see today.
Right, but the weight difference between this car and that car, of course, that's all classified.
Yeah, but we're 20 years or longer of
Yeah.
life
Right.
between of technology and lessons learned and
Yeah,
ways of.
and we tried to, later in its life, make it period correct. When we first built this car, it had white wall tires on it. They were the white, the in thing
Yeah.
back then, okay? To the tune of about $800 a tire from Goodyear to have those tires made. And then we put black walls on it.
So, Bob, we moved over to this car. Tell me who first used this car.
Ronald Reagan,
Wow. When was that? What was that? Early first term?
yes, yes. It's a 1983 Cadillac. It is the last convertible to be built by the Secret Service. This was not a protective limo. This was what we called a formal follow-up, which would have been the gun car in the motorcade directly behind the limo. Operationally back then, you can see we had the running boards on here, the grab bars, but the car afforded very little protection with the top down.
And why don't we have these things now? Why do these not
Too
exist?
dangerous.
Okay.
Too dangerous. Stories about this car. We took this car to Bitburg, Germany. I always happened to be there if it was going to happen. We're in the motorcade. I'm driving the spare car in the motorcade, and all of a sudden I see a Coke bottle coming out of the crowd, and I'm thinking Molotov cocktails. So I grabbed the radio, let them know we had the director, John Simpson, was in the back seat of this car, and it was an empty bottle, and it just landed inside. Thank God. Another good story, October 1983. We were at Augusta Nationals golf course. President Reagan's playing a golf. Beautiful day. Everything's wonderful. All of a sudden, we get a call on the radio. We now have a hostage situation at the front gate of Augusta National.
Huh.
So we had to get the president off of the golf course to deal with this situation. Well, the closest car to him at the time was this thing. And we had the top down on it, but we elected to throw him in it, and we drove this car across Augusta National's
With the
golf
top
course.
down and the
With the
president
top
in
down and the
the back.
president in the back, waving. But anyways, they got this hostage situation resolved. It really never made the news. I don't know why, but that was one of the big situations for this car. It is the last convertible we built. It was a real process producing this car because nobody made a convertible like this. So we had to cut it here at what they call the B pillar, make that convertible top. It was used an awful lot. I don't know how many sets of running boards we put on this car. Every time we go to England, we go into the palaces.
Yes.
And the car is so wide, you can't see down here. And boom, their running boards busted up. And then we had to paint stripes back here so you didn't get your feet back past that point.
Oh, wow.
But again, the car was used a lot. So after this went out, we wanted to continue the formal follow-up theme in the Secret Service. So we built that car over here.
Oh, wow. Let's go over there. Okay, so Bob, tell me about this car. What is this?
This is a 1987 version of that car there.
Ah, okay.
If you notice, hardtop. A lot more grab bars on it. Armored transparencies the whole way around to protect the occupants of it. We reconfigured the running boards. These were removable. Those were not. This was powered. We built it. It was so heavy, we couldn't get enough power out of the engine. So we elected to put this as a 454 cubic inch Chevrolet Mark V truck engine in it to make it get down the road. And I was talking a little earlier about the white wall tires. This is the last one with the white wall tires on it. We're still able to get some of those. So this was the last generation of a car platform for a formal follow-up vehicle. Naturally, now everything's built on a Suburban chassis. And
So this vehicle was not intended to transport the president.
no, this was a gun car designed to protect in parade situations where back even up in the late 80s, we liked putting the agents out on these boards.
So they were here, they could jump and go if needed.
Right. We had two of these. We'd like to build in multiples if we can, rather than having just one independent car.
So when you're building this car, evolving from this car, you got a team of people that said, okay, how do we need to improve it? What works better? You mentioned the handle that goes in the back. So people contribute how to make it a better,
and we get that from the agents that drive them, the guys that work on them, the guys that build them, try and make it bigger, better. This originally had a fold-down step bumper on the back. You notice the handles on this trunk of this car?
Yeah.
Okay, this had a bumper on it that folded down. You can see it. See the steps?
Right. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we had that on this car, but the car became too long, too unsightly. It just didn't work out. So we took it off and we put fender skirts on this car.
I see. Yeah.
To keep the occupants from getting their wheels tangled up.
Wow. So as technology evolves and music goes from AM, FM to 8-track to cassettes to CDs, does that type of thing change in the car as well for the president to listen to music?
Yes. We are state of the art.
State of the art.
Okay. Other things that changed. Carburetor on the engine on this car. Electronic fuel injection on this car. So we progressed with the industry.
That's great. And the creature comforts as well.
And the creature comforts, yes, sir.
Wow. Incredible. So Bob, from that vehicle that we just looked at, we evolved to this type of vehicle.
Correct.
And tell us why that transition. And clearly this is an SUV look.
Number one, big cars were going out of production. Okay. The way we were operating, we were carrying more weaponry and gear and things like that. And the Suburban platform had more static clearance from the ground. A much easier platform to work with to armor. Much cheaper than trying to build a car because there's no cutting, stretching, time involved and everything like that. These are all built in a four-wheel drive configuration, so inclement weather.
Sure, of course.
If we have to go, we have to go. And
well, I think culturally we became more of an SUV society
oh my
too.
God!
And it
Look
became
around, you don't
blended
see
into the
cars
world.
anymore. This is what it is.
Yeah.
These are all gas powered, no diesels, no electric, anything like that. Ballistically, far better than this car right here. Okay. I guess it's still the vehicle of choice. I've been going 3 years, and
Now you have lights on
Yes.
this. Did you have any kind of lights or sirens on the older
on these
vehicles?
no grill lights.
Grill lights.
That's all we had was grill lights.
Yeah.
Back then, things really changed a lot in a couple of years there. You know, this car is a lot heavier than those cars too. The
Yeah, you
handling,
see
the
these. I mean,
braking.
you see these all the time. This is a
Yeah, and
very
they don't
familiar.
stand out in a crowd anymore. They used to. Now, like you said, there's so many of these out there that
only the president uses the Beast.
Only the president, yes. And we have a separate fleet of vehicles for the president, a separate fleet of vehicles for the vice president, and then our dignitary protective division has their own fleet of vehicles that are different than what you're standing in front of.
And did the first lady and second lady fall into the presidential and vice presidential protectee group?
They do.
and we've also built some of these in a limo configuration also.
Oh, wow.
When you referred earlier to the SUV package,
Yes.
our Camp David package, we do have some configurations where you get into the back, it looks like a limousine where the seat is back further, or it could be captain's chairs or something to make it more presidential, vice presidential, that we can use these in off-road capacity.
And those will have the seal on them as well when the president uses them?
Anytime he's in an official movement, he'll have flags and a seal on the
seal.
door.
Yeah.
Right. Bob, thank you so much, not only for today, but for 50 years of what you've given and done for our country.
you.
It's really incredible.
Yeah.
It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Same here.
Okay, John, meeting Bob was a real honor. 50 years of his life dedicated to the Secret Service and to our country. Really an honor to meet him, in addition to your 24 years. But what a life of service, 50 years. That's incredible.
He's a legend.
Yeah. Well, now we're over here with the motorcycles, and these are a very familiar sight. You see them out in advance of the motorcade, intersection control, clearing the way. That's your first, as a pedestrian or somebody in Washington, D.C., that's your first signal that something's coming.
That's right.
And you know it's a motorcade. Tell us about these and the sidecar. I've never seen anybody ride in the sidecar.
Well, these particular bikes are the Secret Service motorcade escort division, and they provide, as you said, an escort for the president's motorcade throughout the city. We also use Metropolitan Police Special Operations Division, their motorcycles, and the U.S. Park Police. They team up with our team to provide security. Nobody rides in the sidecar. The sidecar is strictly for safety reasons at this time of year when it's inclement weather. So at certain times of the year, you'll see the entities that are escorting the president put the sidecars on to give them stability on the city streets and the weather. But typically it's just the rider on his motorcycle.
So when you travel across the country, the Secret Service package is part of the motorcade, but then you'll use local law enforcement. Metropolitan Police from Washington doesn't travel with you to Los Angeles. You would use LAPD.
That's right. Whatever entity, they may not have a motorcycle unit. They may use patrol cars for that function. But most cities we travel to, foreign and domestic, have a motorcycle unit that probably rides out in front of the president on the motorcade.
Yeah.
And as you said, shutting down streets or blockades.
It's really incredible. And again, I'm just awed by the service that you and your colleagues have provided, and the discretion, the training, the pride that you put into your job. It's really heartwarming and inspirational.
Thank you. I've got one more treat for you.
Okay, what is
We
that?
met Bob.
There can't be another Bob to meet.
No, we met Bob.
Yeah.
we're going to get inside of one of the beasts.
Are you serious?
Let's do it.
Oh, wow. This is credible. So in this particular car, this exact car, President George W. Bush would have sat where I'm sitting.
Right where you're sitting.
President Obama would have sat where I'm sitting. And
That's correct.
if these walls could talk, the things that would have transpired in these cars is pretty incredible, like the Oval Office.
That's right. Take any time frame you'd like through those administrations and world events and personal events that those men were dealing with and facing, and put yourselves in that seat.
Mm-hmm.
And we're driving down the road to any destination, and this is how we got there.
Wow. And so anyone who would be sitting where you are or across from us they would join the president at the invitation of the president.
That's right. This is the First Lady's seat when they do ride with the president, or it could be a senior staff member or any other guest that the president invited in. We would like for them to sit here first and then fill in those seats, but it depends on who that person would be.
Mm-hmm. This car would have gone all over the world with President Bush and with President Obama.
This limousine traveled the world.
Wow. And did you drive this car with President Obama?
I did.
Wow. So you have a lot of personal memories in this vehicle as well.
I have a lot of memories in this vehicle.
Wow.
And it's a different drive than the newer generations. This certainly got your attention when you were driving. You had a little bit more car to handle, but it was quite an honor.
And you have the big windows, of course, where they can wave and be seen.
That's right.
Driving around.
Most limousines you see throughout your life, you see tinted windows and you can't tell who's on the inside. We want everybody to know who's inside this vehicle.
Wow. And so that would be these lights as well that would light up and give it more of a...
We would rather not backlight the president, but those are lights that when he gets out, make sure that he has all the stuff that he came in the car with, or the paperwork. There are other lights that we can put on that are more dim, so he could read the daily briefing or the speeches he's about to give. Mm-hmm. His seat sits just a little bit higher than the other seats, just because that's where it happens in any meeting he's in.
So this was the car that was used by President George W. Bush, but at the beginning of the Obama presidency on the inauguration day is when the new generation of the Beast was deployed, correct?
That's correct.
So President George W. Bush, as the outgoing president, rode to Capitol Hill from the White House with President Obama going to the Capitol.
That's right.
And that would have been the first time that President George W. Bush had ridden in that car.
That would be the first time that anybody saw the new car. That was correct.
I see.
That was the unveiling.
So President Bush would have ridden to the Capitol as the outgoing president with President Obama, and then going back to the White House in the parade, it would have been President Obama's shift to this seat as president of the United States.
That's right.
And when in a parade route from time to time, as happens, the president and the first lady say, well, we want to get out and walk the parade route. You have to know that that could happen, but how do they communicate that, and how do you feel about that? What is the preparation and the anticipation and the anxiety about that?
Well, we talk with them about that and brief them on Inauguration Day. And there are obviously areas in the city that we don't want them to get out in based on the security situation or the assets that we have in the area. So we'll pre-plan an area for them to get out. Now, whether they do or not, based on the weather, or if they want to walk. But if the president would indicate to the special agent in charge that we'd like to get out and walk, the special agent in charge would say, yes, sir, just give us a moment. And then we would go to that predetermined area and we would let them out of the vehicles and walk.
Wow. And of course, every president and first lady has a name that's given to them, that they're a call sign that they're given so when you're talking to your colleagues, you refer to them by those names in your communication about the movements as you're traveling.
That's correct.
So the White House Communications Agency is pretty great about keeping the president in touch with anybody at any time in the world. And so you have those assets in a car. The president could reach anyone at any time. Is there something here that would do that?
Yes, this phone here allows the president, even in transport in the vehicle, to be able to perform his three functions, to be the chief diplomat, the head of state, and the commander-in-chief anywhere in the world. And the White House Communications Agency tests this phone and its capabilities on a daily basis to make sure he could do that.
So now I think I'm ready to go for dinner. Can we just take this vehicle and go?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you, John. This is incredible. Let's take the next step.
Yes, sir.
So, John, we're out of Gen 1, where we were just sitting, where President Bush and President Obama would have used that vehicle. And then this is the vehicle, the Gen 2, that President Obama would have taken over use of after his inauguration.
That's right.
His first term. And you can clearly see and feel the scale, the proportion is much heftier, meatier than the one that we were in. What are the general, how would you describe the differences in these two vehicles?
Well, many more capabilities when it comes to protection and security of the president. And for instance, the windows no longer roll down on these
So
vehicles.
no fresh air for the president.
That's correct. We have a lighting system for the flags, keep it in.
Yeah, I noticed there's a small little, almost a pin light
That's
up
right.
here on the hood. And I was kind of scared to ask what that might be, but it actually lights the flag. So you're always having illuminated.
That's right. The
flag.
American flag and the presidential flag are always illuminated day or night.
Fantastic. And even the height of the tires and the, everything. This is a beastier beast.
It is much more of a vehicle. And again, the tires are bigger. It gives us much more advantageous on the terrain.
So obviously President Bush was only able to ride in this going up to the inauguration, and he had to turn it over to President Obama. He probably had a little car envy that last time. Like, wow, you get to ride in this really cool car. This is really impressive.
I would say all world leaders have auto car envy.
I'm sure that's true. That's really true. Well, this is amazing. And then, of course, the Gen 3 is what is currently deployed and in use right now. Well, John, this has been incredible just to have this peek behind the curtain of this facility, the multiple generations and styles and uses and the technology and just the evolution of this important part of protecting and transporting our president. And I can't thank you enough for the privilege of today. Thank you very much.
It's been my honor.
Thank you. And all the best to you in retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening and watching today. Be sure to subscribe to the White House 1600 Sessions on your favorite podcast provider so that you never miss an episode, and watch the video version on YouTube and Facebook. Your support of the White House Historical Association makes this work possible. When you become an association member, or when you purchase a book, or even the official White House Christmas ornament, you're helping to fund our education mission through teacher programming, publishing, our White House History Live, in-person and virtual events, and our latest initiative, the People's House, a White House experience. We're bringing the White House and its storied history to life at 1700 Pennsylvania Avenue, and it's open to everyone. So plan your visit today and register for free passes at our website, thepeopleshouse.org. And you can learn more about our work as a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization by going to our website, whitehousehistory.org. Thank you very much.